Okay, it's 10:30, so let's get started. It is Identity Theft Awareness Week. The Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC, has dubbed this week as Identity Theft Awareness Week. So we are going to talk about the most common forms of identity theft. The information I'm going to give you today is from the Federal Trade Commission. So they usually in February, they haven't put out their numbers for October to the end of December of last year, but they have their numbers from January 1 to the end of September. So they have their first 3 quarters of information when it comes to identity theft reports that are sent to them. We work with the FTC regularly, and we share information when it comes to scams on identity theft. So we will see what the most common forms of identity theft are, and if there's any matching information when it comes to reports based on South Carolina's numbers and the national numbers. Okay, here's the roadmap for today. We're going to talk about the myths of identity theft first. I'm gonna bust some of these basic myths before we go into the common forms, because the more I give these presentations, the more I hear myths from people about identity theft, some common misconceptions. So we're going to bust some of those myths first off. Then we're going to go into the top 5 common forms for 2022 of identity theft. We'll go into those red flags of what we should do to notice a identity theft situation from happening. So some people are victims of scams, but they're not victims of identity theft. But a lot of times, victims of identity theft are the victims of scams. So when we talk about identity theft, we often talk about scams. So we'll talk about scam red flags, and then what can you do to protect your information? And then if you are a victim, what can you do? So myths. Number 1 myth is identity theft is easy to recover from. I remember going to a presentation recently, and somebody that was in the presentation said, well, I'm not that worried about identity theft because I can just have it taken off of my credit report really easily, and it's not that big of a deal. I wish it was that easy. I wish it was easy as calling up the credit reporting agency and saying, hey, this isn't mine, can you take it off? And they say, oh, sure, no big deal. And they take it off immediately, no questions asked, and then you go on your way. Unfortunately, identity theft is not that easy to recover from. Sometimes, depending on the form of identity theft, is really going to determine how long it takes to recover from. So like a credit card fraud is gonna not take as long as, say, a medical identity theft incident. So medical identity theft, Kaiser Medical, which is a large nationwide medical organization, Kaiser did a study on medical identity theft a few years ago, and they said it can take anywhere on average of 2 to 3 years to recover from a medical identity theft incident. Credit card fraud won't take near as long, but it's not going to just be I'm going to snap my fingers and it's going to go away type of situation. So don't think to yourself, oh, it's no big deal, I can easily recover from this. I'll know right away if my identity is stolen. The majority of people who call us don't find out until way after the fact. We wish that people would call us immediately, or that people would be watching their finances or their accounts, checking their credit reports as often as they should be, to find out that their identity has been stolen or that mistakes have been made, so they can catch them as quickly as possible, because time is of the essence when it comes to identity theft. And the longer it sits, the harder it is to get taken off of your credit report. So, but unfortunately, not a lot of people find out right away, especially if you're not actively monitoring everything. So if you are not looking at your credit report as often as you should be, then you aren't going to know right away. You can just get a new social security number. This is a common myth that I hear from people that, oh, well, I can just go and get a new social security number from the Social Security Administration. No, you can't. Your social security number is your social security number for the rest of your life, unless you become a member of the Witness Protection Program. And if you become a member of the Witness Protection Program, you've got much bigger issues than identity theft, okay? So you cannot just walk into the Social Security Administration office and ask for a new number because you've been a victim of identity theft. It just doesn't work like that. You will have to keep that number and you will have to rectify the issue with your number. So just know you can't get a new one. Personal information like your birthday is useless to criminals, or personal information like your maiden name is useless to criminals. No, all of your information, no matter how small it may seem, is useful to criminals because they can either use that information to seem more credible when they call you and act like a business, your bank, whoever, or they can use that information to act like you when they go out and try and steal your identity, apply for loans, do other things like that. So no matter what piece of information, how big or how small, all of your information is good information to a criminal. So be very wary of giving out any personal information. Finances are the only thing affected by identity theft. This is certainly not true. So, of course, finances are the first thing we think about when it comes to being affected by identity theft. But of course, you know, being able to get a loan, get a house, things like that are definitely affected if your credit score goes down because somebody stole your identity. But you may not be able to rent an apartment, get a utility account. You may not be able to get a cell phone. You may not be able to get disability because maybe somebody applied for disability in your name. You may not be able to get Social Security benefits because somebody already claimed those for you so nicely. So your direct finances are not the only thing affected by identity theft. And there's nothing you can do to protect from identity theft. I hear this often. Well, I can't do anything about it, so you know, I'm just going to wait for it to happen. While there are only a few things that you truly can do, because you can't control security breaches, that is true. You can't control that from happening, but you definitely can put on more layers of armor to protect yourself from being a victim of identity theft, or at least lessening the blow if it does happen. So we're going to talk about that today. So here are the top forms of identity theft, or the most common forms of identity theft for 2022. And I will say that these are usually the top forms across the board when it comes to previous years too. This top one usually is in the top two, if not number one, for the past couple of years running. Credit card fraud. So there were about 338,000 reports to the Federal Trade Commission from January 1 to the end of September of last year. And that matches the reports here in South Carolina. So we take reports just from South Carolinians at our identity theft unit. The FTC takes them nationally, and then we work with the FTC. In South Carolina, this matches us. So when I looked at our numbers, credit card fraud was number one. Also, I'm just going to make a quick guess here. Credit card fraud is easy to commit. Usually, we'll talk about why when we go over what each of these things are in a second, but it is one of the easier forms of identity theft to commit. So I'm not shocked by this being number one. It's usually in number one or number two. So yes, this is not shocking to me in any way, shape, or form. Loan and lease fraud, and you see the number discrepancy here. This is so much higher than loan and lease fraud. It's over 200,000 reports more. So just know that, this is far and above the second number here, which is loan and lease fraud at 121,000 reports. And we'll talk, and again, we're going to go over each and every one of these things and what they are in just a second. Bank fraud, 120,000 reports, so just under loan and lease fraud. Employment and tax related fraud at 85,000 reports, so we're taking a pretty significant drop there when it comes to the number 4 spot. I will say, so in 2021, so not last year, but 2021, tax fraud was the #1 reported identity theft in South Carolina. Now, it wasn't last year, credit card fraud was, but it was in the top 3 last year. So tax-related fraud is in the top for South Carolina, which I think is interesting. And then phone and utilities fraud is just below 60,000 reports. And let's jump into, well, what are these things? So what is credit card fraud? So credit card fraud is a form of identity theft that involves stealing someone's credit card information for the purpose of charging purchases to the account, or removing funds from it, or opening up a new account in general. So it falls into these 2 categories. The account takeover, which is what this is. So they're going to steal your number and they're going to charge to your current account. Or application fraud. They're going to open up new accounts in your name. So generally, credit card fraud falls into these 2 categories. This is a very easy type of identity theft to commit. So number 1, they can steal your credit card either in person. So say you lose a wallet. That's happened to me before. Somebody has stolen a wallet from me at the grocery store, and they've used my credit card information, right? And they've used all of my credit cards to go on a shopping spree. So that would be a form of credit card fraud. But application fraud is also very common and very easy to do, because all they need is a little bit of information about you, or they could just steal your mail. If you've got any of those pre-approvals for credit cards sitting in your mailbox, they can just take those on out and apply in your name and take those pre-approvals for themselves. And that's very, very common. If you're not looking at your credit reports, or you're not getting notifications from any of your other credit card companies about your credit score, you may not know that anybody's opened up a new credit card in your name or applying for lines of credit. So you may not get that notification. You may not know. So somebody could be opening up new lines of credit in your name and going on shopping sprees. When you do find out, you're going to be left with all that debt, because I can promise you that an identity thief is not paying your bills. Okay. Excuse me. Next form of identity theft is this loan and lease fraud. So this is when a criminal uses your personal information to illegally obtain a loan or a lease. What this means is a fraudster might open a mortgage in your name. This is just an example. Or take out a reverse mortgage and steal your home equity, and then leave you to pay it off. This isn't just for mortgages. That was just an example, but this applies to any type of loan. This could be for a car loan, a payday loan, any other type of large loan or a lease. This could be like a car lease, things like that. And this one is going to require a lot more information. So they're going to need your social security number, most likely. And you're thinking to yourself, well, how are they getting that information? We'll talk about that in a second, but usually they're getting it straight from you a lot of times. You accidentally give it to them over the phone or through a phishing email, things like that, or through a security breach. If there's been a security breach at a company that you've been to or an organization that you've been to, and your social security number was a part of that breach, that means an identity thief could be using your information to apply for a loan or a lease in your name. These ones usually are a lot more money than the average credit card, right? Because, you know, lines of credit for credit cards run in tens of thousands of dollars. Loans, on the other hand, could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this one could cost you a lot more money. Or if somebody's opening up a payday loan in your name, the interest rate could be astronomical. It could be hundreds, it could be 300% interest on a payday loan that they're not paying. So you could end up paying or owing a ton of money. Bank fraud. So the most common forms of bank fraud involve fraudulent use of checks. Usually involves some form of check to obtain cash or other assets. How does that usually involve the average consumer, though? So usually it's involving the theft of checks from mailboxes or mailrooms and offices or post offices. So when I'm talking to the average consumer about bank fraud, it's usually, please, 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 if you're still using checks to pay your bills, don't just put them in your mailbox. I don't care if your mailbox has the little lock on it. Those are so easy to break into. Take it straight into your post office. That is the safest bet. It still is not a guarantee, but it is the safest bet compared to your mailbox or the blue box, walking it straight into the building, because a criminal can easily take that check and either they can wipe all of the written information that you have on that check and write whatever they want for themselves, or even better, they can just use the information on that check to commit identity theft because they have your account information now and they can use it to open up new accounts. So please be careful. I'm not saying don't use checks. Just be careful when you are using checks and sending checks to pay bills, because those checks have your entire account number on the bottom of them. And it's a very easy tool for criminals to use to either pay themselves or just get your account information to either open up new accounts or take more money from you. Employment or tax-related fraud. I mentioned that in 2021, that was the most, tax-related fraud anyways, was the most reported to South Carolina. So employment-related fraud is when somebody steals your social security number and applies for jobs in your name. Usually it's because there's something on their record that is limiting them in their job search, okay? So they're using your information to get around something that's on their record. Tax identity theft occurs when somebody uses your social security number to file taxes and claim your tax refund. You oftentimes don't even know that your tax ID has been stolen until either you go to file and it tells you, hey, you already filed, why are you trying to file again? Or the IRS sends you a 5071C letter in the mail indicating that you have been a victim of tax ID theft. Most often, at least to us, when people called us and reported tax identity theft, they told us it was because when they went to file, they were notified that somebody had already filed for them. So this is unfortunately common, and it can have some serious implications, especially when it comes to doing your taxes in the future. There are some protections. We just sent out if you're on our publications list, we just sent out a tax time tips press release. If you aren't on our publications list, you can go to our website and you can go to our news tab and you can see it there. But if you are a victim of tax identity theft, you can get a PIN number now I think everybody can get a PIN number now, even if you aren't a victim of tax identity theft. That can basically be an added layer when you're doing your taxes of protection. So think of that as we are getting into tax season. You want to make sure you file early. Just going to say that. Just the earlier you file, the better, because that means you're not giving criminals the ability to kind of wiggle their way in of, oh, well, they haven't filed their taxes yet. I'm going to do it for them. Okay. And then phone and utilities fraud, number 5. So cellular fraud or phone fraud is the unauthorized use or tampering and manipulation of a cellular phone or service. Usually this is done by SIM swapping, cloning, or subscriber fraud. Subscriber fraud is somebody opening up a cell phone plan in your name. And SIM swapping is a very complicated process. And I put the link here, so if you download the slides, you can learn more about it. But basically, it's where somebody takes your SIM card and uses it for themselves and gets all of your phone abilities on their phone. So you can no longer use your phone. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to the SCDCA.gov. This is the link that it'll take you to. We're not going to go into much detail about that, though, because it would take forever. And then utility fraud comes in a bunch of different forms. It can come in any utility. So it could be like your cable, your internet, electricity, water, gas. They can open up utility accounts in your name. So somebody has bad credit or doesn't pay their bills and they want to get internet. They want to get TV. And so they call a cable company. And guess what? Cable companies now check your credit before they open up accounts for people. And they will deny people if they see that they don't pay their bills. Well, if they use your information and you pay your bills, then good for them. They're going to get approved. And then they're not going to pay their bills because it's in your name and you're going to be left with the bill at the end of the month. So how does all of this happen, right? How do all of these forms of identity theft, including the tons of other forms, I mentioned medical identity theft before, these are just the top 5. This is not an exhaustive list. There's so many other ways that identity theft can happen, but how does it happen? Well, the majority of the time, it's you. I don't want to put the blame on you or I, but unfortunately, it's usually on us. Somebody calls us and they're very convincing. They have a caller ID number that says it's our bank, or it says it's the IRS, or it says it's the Social Security Administration, and they have a good amount of information about us. They have the last 4 digits of our Social Security number, or they have our account number already. So we're willing to trust them, or we're in a hurry and they tell us our account is suspended and we need to give them our account number in order to verify our identity. And it freaks us out. Why is our account suspended? Okay, we'll do whatever we need to do in order to get it unsuspended. So you give over information that you wouldn't normally give over. So it's usually us. We're usually the culprits of our own identity theft. Obviously not meaning to do it, because scammers are very convincing. They do this for a living. They make a lot of money doing it. We wish they would be honest citizens and go out and get real jobs, but they make a lot of money being criminals. So they are constantly developing new tactics to trick you. This isn't the olden days where we're all like, oh, these scammers are so stupid. No, these scammers are very smart. They're developing very intelligent ways to trick you. And I think gone are the days of saying, oh, how could anyone fall for that scam? I think we should just get rid of that saying. These scammers are so smart that I just think it's wrong to say, oh, I can't believe anyone would fall for that. Because I think it's pretty believable that people fall for scams because these scammers are so convincing. So oftentimes it's us, but second one here is security breaches. I mentioned earlier that this is one that we can't control. We can't control if a business is going to have a security breach, which is why we need to do what we can to protect our information. We'll talk about some of those ways in just a minute. But security breaches are unfortunately just going to be something we have to learn to live with. I hate to say that, but they're happening more and more every single day. We're the state agency that takes security breach notices for the state of South Carolina. So if a business that does business in South Carolina has a breach and it affects South Carolinians, businesses report to us. And we know, based on those breach notifications, and you can look at those on our website too if you're interested. Based on those notifications, we know that they're increasing and they happen a lot. So we know that identity theft can definitely happen from these breaches. Lost or stolen wallets, I mentioned this already, it happened to me. And that credit card identity theft is very easy if your wallet gets stolen. Theft by family or friends, this is bold and italicized for a reason. We know that identity theft, unfortunately, is perpetrated by people who are close to us a good amount of the time, just because we trust them and we love them, and so we give over information because we don't think that that person would do anything wrong or bad with that information. But sometimes our family members and friends fall on hard times and they maybe open up a loan in our name because we've got good credit and they don't. I've worked at Consumer Affairs for about 4.5 years now, and I don't know how many times we've heard the story of, you know, a grandma or a mom calling and saying that, you know, their son or their grandchild, you know, opened up a loan in their name without their knowledge, or credit cards, whatever it may be. So this is an unfortunate reality. Dumpster diving. This still happens, okay? People are still dumpster diving. I think some people thought this just stopped happening. Nope, it still happens. So please shred those pre-approvals that you get in the mail, whether they're for insurance or for those credit cards that we talked about earlier, the pre-approvals for credit cards, or even for your explanation of benefits, those EOBs you get for insurance. That has a lot of personal identifying information. Please shred all of that. And stolen mail, mentioned this just a tiny bit when it comes to mailing checks, but if you're going to go out of town for a significant period of time, even I would say over 3-4 days, get somebody you trust to pick up your mail for you, because any amount of personal identifying information stolen from your mail can be, you know, pieced together into the puzzle that is your identity, right? And really, there's so much that is coming into our mailboxes that could be pieced together for a criminal. So just be thinking of that if you're going to go on vacation. You can even pause mail through the USPS if you need to. You can go to the website, or you could even go into your local post office and ask them about pausing mail if you're going to be leaving. I think it's for more than 10 days. They have like a cutoff. It has to be for like more than 10 days. So that's an option too. Excuse me. So please keep an open mind about scammers and identity thieves. No matter the method, scammers are going to do anything they can to get your money or personal information, because your personal information is money to them, right? Because they're either going to use it to apply for loans, credit cards, whatever they can to get money, or they're going to sell your personal information to make money. So keep an open mind. They're going to reach out to you in any way now: phone, mail, text message, email, fake websites, in person, doesn't matter. They have no shame. They will get to you in any way that they can. So don't think to yourself, oh, well, I've never heard of a scam coming in person, so it must be real. No, scammers come in person. They have no shame. They will show up at your door. So the red flags are the same. Now, there are some specific red flags to specific scams or things of identity theft, but I would say these 4 red flags apply across the board to every scam. And like I said, oftentimes, just because you've been the victim of a scam doesn't mean you're the victim of identity theft, but oftentimes identity theft does happen if you are the victim of a scam. So we may not be able to know every scam out there, but if you know the red flags, you can avoid getting scammed. Here are the most common signs of a scam. Scammers are going to pretend to be someone you know or recognize. So they're going to pretend to be the IRS. They're going to be pretending to be the Social Security Administration, your bank, maybe even a family member. They're going to get your family member's phone number. They're going to spoof that phone number, spoofing being that they can cover their real phone number with anyone they want, and it'll show up like that on your caller ID. So you won't even know that it's not your Mima calling, right? So they can act like anyone they want, and it'll show up on the caller ID like that. They can act like your friend, your family member, the IRS, the Social Security Administration. They can even act like SCDCA if they wanted. But they want to use that trust that you have in that person you know or recognize. So you are more willing to give over money or information. That's why they are using that familiarity. They're using that trust and that, oh yeah, I know Bailey. I know Bailey Parker from Consumer Affairs. I know the IRS. They're trustworthy. Okay, I'll give over my information. Yeah, no, don't fall for that. Okay, don't fall for that. Second most common sign, there's always going to be a problem or a prize. You have to fix something for a scammer often. So they're going to say, hey, your account's been suspended because there was suspicious activity. That's a very common one. Or you've won something. Oh my gosh, everybody loves to win stuff, right? Especially if it was free. So scammers are playing on your want to win something because everybody wants to win, or are playing on your fear and your want to fix that problem. So they're going to try and make you scared. And when you're scared, you're not thinking properly. Same kind of goes for a prize, especially if they're coming at you with like $1 million prize or $1 million lottery. You may not start thinking correctly, like, oh, $1 million? We see it all the time. You start thinking a little wild when somebody comes at you with a huge lottery prize. You start thinking about all the things you can do with it if it is real. You start thinking about all the amazing places you could go, all the amazing things you could do for your family if it is real. And then it starts to become more real the more you think about it. It happens all the time. We start kind of building this up in our mind. So scammers know that. They know we do that as human beings. So that's how they're approaching this. So there's always a problem or there's a prize, and you have to do something about it. Every single time. You've either got to fix their problem or you got to pay for that prize. You got to pay them shipping and handling to get that $1 million. You got to pay them some sort of fee to get that cruise. Or you've got to give over your account number in order to get them to unfreeze your account. You've got to give them something in order to fix this problem or get that prize. And they are going to pressure you to do something fast. You need to do it immediately. The reason scammers want you to act fast is because the faster you do something, the less time you have to think about it. The less time you have to think about it, the less time you have to realize it's a scam. Scammers know the more time people have to think about what's being said to them, the more time they have to say, you know what, that doesn't sound right. You know what, that actually kind of sounds a little scammy, okay? So scammers want you to act fast because they know if you don't, they won't get you. They won't get you on the hook, okay? And they're going to do anything. Scammers, they're criminals, right? I hear this all the time from people. Well, why would scammers say that? Because they're criminals. They don't care. They have no shame, okay? Because scammers will literally lie and say anything they can to get you to give over your money or your personal information. There is no shame. So I hear it all the time. Well, I can't believe they would say that. Well, I can. They're criminals, okay? And then the last one, I think this is the biggest red flag out of all of them. They tell you to pay in a specific way. So the specific way is going to be most likely a wire transfer, gift card, cryptocurrency, some bank-to-bank transfer. It's going to be a very odd way. It's not going to be like, hey, you've got options. They're not going to give you options of payment. They're not going to be like, yeah, you can pay in any way you want. You can pay in cash, credit card, whatever. It's not going to be like a regular business transaction. It's going to be like, hey, you've got to go down to the Walmart and buy $500 worth of iTunes gift cards and scratch off the back of the gift cards and send me the codes. That's not normal. Normal businesses and normal people don't do that. Criminals do, okay? I can safely say 100% of the time when people ask for gift card in payment, it is a scam. 100% of the time, scammers love gift cards because it's untraceable, right? Once they've got that money, it's spent. Same thing goes for cryptocurrency. Same thing goes for wire transfer. It's nearly untraceable. You may be able to trace it, but it just moves so quickly that they're going to move it to another account, move it to another account, move it to another account, so that you're going to most likely lose that trail very quickly. So the way I explain it to consumers is if you were to walk into Walmart and you're gonna buy some groceries and you walk up to the cash register and you're getting ready to pay and you hold out your credit card and the cashier says, oh, sorry, it's Friday. Walmart no longer takes credit cards on Fridays. We only take cryptocurrency on Fridays. Only cryptocurrency. We don't take anything else. We don't take cash, nothing. That'd be weird, right? There'd be like an uproar. If Walmart only accepted cryptocurrencies on Fridays, that would be weird. We should be thinking the exact same way if anyone else approaches us in any way, shape, or form. Why are we not thinking the same way when our quote unquote utility company calls us and says we owe money or else our power is going to be shut off, so we need to pay in gift cards? Why are we not thinking that's weird? Okay, we need to start thinking that way. Okay, so how are we going to avoid this? Please, please, please do not answer calls or respond to text messages from numbers you don't know. I know this is hard. I am empathetic to the, I don't know if it's my doctor's office calling. I don't know every number that's coming in, so I feel like I need to answer. I get it. Just let them leave a voicemail. If it's somebody you need to talk to, they will leave a voicemail. It'll be an actual human being. It won't be a robot. It won't be cut off. If it's somebody who needs to speak to you, they will leave an actual voicemail. It is not worth it to answer the phone, especially on numbers you don't recognize. Especially, don't do this of like, oh, well, I recognize the area code, so I'm going to answer it. No, don't do that either. Scammers know that. It's called neighbor spoofing. So scammers know that you're more likely to answer a phone number if you recognize the area code. So they'll choose an area code either by you or the same area code as your phone number, because they know you're going to be more likely to answer it. So don't do it. If you don't recognize it, don't answer it. It's not worth it. Don't give out your personal information or financial information if it's a request you didn't expect. I say specifically from cold callers or cold contacts. If it came out of the blue, don't do it. Like if your quote unquote bank calls, so somebody claims to be your bank, they called out of the blue and said, hey, your accounts had some suspicious activity, but we need to verify your identity. They called you out of the blue directly. I would hang up and I'd call your bank back and say, did you just call me? More oftentimes than not, they're going to say, no, we didn't. Because legitimate businesses are not going to call you up directly without some form of you reaching out to them first. Usually you have to contact them first. Don't fall for those high pressure tactics. Scammers, that's their number one thing. And I would even say just in general, you don't want to do business with anyone who is trying to pressure you. Anyone who's pressuring you to make a decision to either pay or give over information, I just wouldn't talk to them. Even if it is a legitimate business, I would just say, turn the other way. You don't want to be dealing with somebody who's pressuring you. And know those forms of payment that scammers like to use. So look out for those gift card requests, cryptocurrency and wire transfers especially. Again, if anyone is saying you have to pay in gift cards, it is 100% of the time a scam. And please stop and talk to somebody you trust. Before you do anything, tell a friend or a family member or a neighbor, I don't care who, talk to somebody and say, hey, is this weird? What do you think about this? Because more often than not, that person is going to have an unbiased opinion and they're going to be able to say, I think that's a little weird. Or they're going to have some sort of experience with it or heard a news story or read something and said, oh, no, that's for sure a scam. Okay. So what are the tools? We've got 15 minutes left. So let's go over these tools to protect yourself and your information. So first, I've mentioned it multiple times so far in this presentation, credit reports. This is key. You need to be checking your credit reports. This is actually incorrect right here. It was until December 31st of 2022. They extended it until the end of 2023. You can get one free credit report from each of the credit reporting agencies every week until the end of this year. So you got a full year left, guys. That's from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. You don't need to worry about the names because if you just go to annualcreditreport.com or call this number, it will get each of them for you from there. It doesn't contain a credit score because a credit score and a credit report are two separate things. We have a whole presentation just about that. And this is authorized by federal law to not save your information and not sell your information. All those other places, well, I can't say all those other places, but a lot of those other places that advertise free credit reports, including some of the credit reporting agencies, I will say, it's not totally free. Sure, it may not cost you money, but it's going to cost you, I'm going to say, a little bit of sanity because they're going to sell your personal information to third-party buyers. The third-party buyers are going to be credit card companies. You're going to get a lot of pre-approvals. They're going to be insurance companies. So you're going to get a lot of pre-approvals for insurance. A lot more offers are going to start coming to your door, your email, also your phone. So just know they have to make money somehow. They're selling your information. annualcreditreport.com does not do that. You need to be doing this at least once a year. You don't need to look at it every week, right? This is just kind of a perk. It's nice, but please do it at least once a year. I would say with this offer, I would do it like once a quarter, especially because identity theft is so common and happens so often now. And this is just the basics, just in case you don't know what's going to be on your credit report. It's going to have all your personal information. Your credit report is probably the most is the largest depository of your personal information. It's going to have your social security number, your birth date, current and former addresses, your full name, including former names, phone numbers. It's also going to have all of your credit accounts, current and past accounts, the limits, account balances, all of this information. And then it's even going to have public records. So liens, civil suits, judgments, bankruptcies, inquiries. Your credit report has some of the most sensitive information about you on it, including any sort of like healthcare debt, things like that. There have been some changes to healthcare reporting, debt on credit reporting, but anything above $500 is still reported on credit reports for healthcare debt, just to put that out there, because I think we did a whole presentation on it last summer because there was a lot of misinformation out about people thinking that all healthcare debt was being taken off of credit reports. That's not true, just putting it out there. Everything over $500 will still be on credit reports. But this is a huge piece of your identity, so you need to be keeping track of this. You need to be in charge of your identity, making sure this is where you're going to be looking to make sure that people aren't opening up new lines of credit in your name, especially in these inquiries. The inquiries are a great place to look and say, has anyone been like applying for credit and being like denied? Or has anyone been, has like a creditor been checking my report? Things like that. So again, please use this. Oh, this one's updated, December of 2023. Again, it doesn't contain a credit score. You can pay for your official credit score, but if you've got a credit card, I'm sure that credit card offers you some sort of estimated credit score. Fraud alerts. So this is a notification you can add to your credit report. Basically what this does is it tells anyone receiving a credit application in your name to verify your identity before processing that application. It pauses that credit check and tells the creditor to take extra steps to verify your identity before they check your credit. So there's a couple different types of fraud alerts. There's a temporary fraud alert. That's for the average consumer. That'd be for somebody like me. This lasts 1 year and then it expires, but it's free and you can continue to place it. So if it expired, I could just place it again. You can add one to your credit report at any time for any reason, and you can renew it as many times as you'd like. There's the active duty fraud alert. This alert protects active duty service members on assignment away from home and lasts 1 year unless it's removed earlier. And then extended fraud victim alert. This extended alert lasts 7 years and they're designed for victims of credit fraud or identity theft. If you've been a victim of identity theft, you can apply for an extended fraud victim alert. You just need your identity theft affidavit. Frequently asked questions. Does it affect my credit? No, has no effect on the content of your credit report or your score. It may limit your ability to get instant approval for credit cards just because there's going to be that pause on the credit check. When does it make sense to get a fraud alert? I just say get it, it's free. Like, if you're worried about the misuse of your personal information, it's a good starting place and an added layer of security. How do you do it? One call, that's all. You just need to contact one of your major credit reporting agencies to place it. You will need to provide state-issued photo ID, proof of address, like a piece of mail, and an identity theft report if you are seeking an extended alert. The security freeze, I call this one the big daddy. So the security freeze is sometimes called a credit freeze, prevents you, so you or others, from opening up new accounts in your name. It lasts until you lift it. So only certain people can see your file when a freeze is in place, including yourself. So you, creditors who have current accounts with you, some government agencies like child support agencies, if you pay child support, companies that you pay to monitor your credit file if you do. And in general, it's available to anyone. Didn't used to be, but now it's available to anyone. You do have to submit a request to each of the credit reporting agencies to apply. So it's not like a one call, that's all thing. You do have to call each of the credit reporting agencies. You can do that by telephone, email, or letter now. And you can thaw it or lift it. So a thaw is temporarily removing it. What that means is you can like set a 60-day thaw. Say you want to apply for a car loan, and you're like shopping within 60 days. You could say, hey, I just want to thaw it for 60 days, and it'll refreeze after that 60-day time frame. A lift is completely lifting it. So it would completely remove it and it would not refreeze. The security freeze is going to make sure that nobody is opening up new lines of credit in your name. That means you too. You can't open up any new lines of credit. You won't be able to get a credit card. You won't be able to get a new loan. You'll have to either thaw or lift it in order to do that. Does it affect your credit? It doesn't affect the contents of your credit report or your score, but you're going to have to thaw or lift it if you want to get any new credit. Why should you place a freeze on your credit report? If you are not going to apply for any new credit anytime soon, this is the strongest layer of security against identity theft. Once something gets on your credit report for identity theft, somebody opens up a loan in your name, a credit card in your name, it is going to be so hard to get those off. It takes time. It's not like that snap of the fingers to get a new credit card off of your credit report. It's going to take at least 3 months, okay? I'm saying that because you're going to have to provide proof that it's not yours. You're going to be going back and forth with each of the credit reporting agencies because you're going to have to do it with each and every one of them, and it is a headache. If you have been a victim of identity theft, you know it's a headache. If you haven't, talk to somebody. They will tell you it is a massive headache to rectify any piece of information off of your credit report. So I think the security freeze is worth it. Now, I do hear complaints about the security freeze because they're going to give you pins to lift your freeze. Each of the credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, when you call them to place it, they're going to each give you a pin. You have to save those pins. If you lose them, it is a hassle to recover and thaw or lift the freeze if you lose the pins. I hear people complain about it all the time. Yes, it is a headache. I think that small headache is worth the massive migraine that you're going to experience if you become a victim of identity theft. That is my small argument. If you think you've been a victim, please call us. We have an identity theft unit where we have people who are helping walk you through the steps of what you need to do in order to start the process of rectifying your identity. You can either call us at the number below, or you can go to our website. I'll show you real quick. This is our website, consumer.sc.gov. Let me make sure you guys are seeing that. Yeah. Consumer.sc.gov. Right here, there's this little button that says, how do I? You'll go to how do I. These are our top 6 areas that people are most interested in. You can either report identity theft, report a scam, go to report identity theft. This is going to take you to our identity theft page, or you could just go up here too. But this is going to have all of the education, or if you want to report identity theft, you can do it here through this PDF. If you just want to do it through the phone, you can call us too. All the information is there. We also have all of these really handy checklists that you can print off. So if you're a victim of bankruptcy fraud, we have step-by-steps. How to report bankruptcy filed in your name. So there are all of these interactive PDFs that we've created in order, because there's different types of steps for different types of identity theft, right? So benefits fraud has different steps versus bankruptcy fraud. You have to report it to different, you have to go to do, and you have to go to the Inspector General's office. Here, you have to go to the Government Bankruptcy Administration office. So we have all of the steps that you need to take in order to start that process. And it's a long process. So we want to help you. Give us a call. That's what we're here for. We also have a identity theft toolkit that talks about credit reports, security freezes, fraud alerts, all of that, repairing the damage, correcting errors, so disputing and blocking on your credit reports, and all of these extra little steps that we've talked about today. I hope you guys learned something today. Have a happy and healthy Wednesday, guys. Thanks so much for coming. Bye.